Welcome in to a show without a name, episode 1. I wanted to land on a name. I couldn't come up with anything. The Jack Garrett show it's overdone. It's overused. It's everyone. I mean, you think of Dan Patrick, Josh Pate, Rich Eisen. They all do the XY show. I wanted to come up with something different. So for now, it'll remain unnamed, but it's me, it's Jack Garrett. We're here. I want to thank everyone who's listening. We are trying to stay as warm as possible here in southern Indiana. Unbelievable the weather shift that we've had over these last few days. I mean, I went for a run on Saturday and in shorts and a t-shirt. And today I'm more bundled up than I've ever been before. We've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to obviously get into the quarterfinal matchups that we're going to be seeing over Wednesday and Thursday in the college football playoff. We're going to talk some portal acquisitions. But first, I want to talk about some of the coaching moves, specifically 3 to 4 of them. I think it's very important to kind of just throw in here really quick and talk about Marcus Freeman. He announced after being kind of in some head coaching discussions in the NFL that he is going to return to Notre Dame via tweet. He said 2026, let's run it back. So now Marcus Freeman is back here in 2026 for Notre Dame. I think a lot of questions about how long that's going to last, what's going to be in the future. I'm not worried about that, and I'll tell you why, because I do believe that Marcus Freeman one day will find himself in the NFL, but I really just want to focus on next season because I think Notre Dame's got a chance to be so much better than they were this past year, and I thought they had a really good team this past season. I thought they earned a spot in the college football playoff. Committee didn't see it that way, and things were weird with that, but we've moved on, and we're talking now about the 2026 Fighting Irish. First of all, I think point blank, you're getting a lot of guys in their second or third year with the team. And what I mean by that is you look at guys like CJ Carr and Chris Ash. Those are the two big ones for me that really cost them early. I don't think CJ Carr cost them early, but I think having him in his first ever 2 starts against Miami on the road and Texas A&M, who are both college football playoff teams, that has an impact. That matters. I think you're going to have your second year of CJ Carr. You're going to have a second year of Chris Ash, which really cost them. Really cost them in those first 2 games, really in the first 10 quarters of the season. If you want to go back and you want to watch that first half against Purdue, I believe they gave up 23 points to the Boilermakers. So it's going to be things like that I think are going to make Notre Dame really, really good. Looking at the portal, I mean, you've seen stuff. I've seen stuff about Nick Marsh. There's a few guys scattered all over the place, but I did want to highlight that Marcus Freeman will be back there here at the open of the show. Moving on to coaching additions, I think the big one over the weekend, Kyle Whittingham to Michigan. What a weird situation that has been. You really look at 2 of the, I want to say, toughest positions that teams have been in. Penn State, who we'll talk about here in a moment, and Michigan, who Michigan was a little bit more deserved, I guess, to be in a tough position because of everything that had happened with Sherrod Moore and kind of on the end. But I would say that at this stage in the game, I thought Michigan made a really good hire. I think that it was more of a kind of, okay, let's keep the program a little sustainable, because it's very, I mean, when you have stuff that happened with Sherrod Moore and everything else on that staff, because it goes just beyond Sherrod Moore, there is a chance where things could just snowball and get out of control. So you bring a guy like Kyle Whittingham in, who had stepped away from the program at Utah. There's been things that I've heard and read where he was looking to retire. There have been things that I have heard and I have read that he wanted to work on a new deal with Utah. Nonetheless, he is now at Michigan, which I think if you would have kind of put his name in there, and told me that this would have been the hire, that would have really surprised me, especially with the names that they were in on. You look at guys like Jed Fish, who I thought was going to be a really good hire. I thought that was ultimately who Michigan was going to end up with after Kalen DeBoer and Kenny Dillingham both kind of made it known they weren't going to take the job. There were so many ways they could have went, and they end up here. I think that this is a fine hire. I don't think it's a world-beating hire. I don't think it's a home run hire. I think, relatively speaking, you could say it's a home run hire based on, again, the time and the place that this hire was made. But I think overall for Michigan, I mean, this is for me, a 5-year deal. I would imagine that's as long as it goes, which I don't have a problem with. I think a lot of the people that are saying, oh, well, he's 66 years old, he's not going to be there 10 years. How many head coaches are at a place for 10 years anymore? You know, it's a very, what have you done for me lately sport. And I think we're going to get away from seeing a lot of coaches that are at programs for an extended amount of time. You know, you have your Kirby Smarts, you're going to have your Ryan Days, but, you know, how long till Ryan Day wants to go to the NFL? So it's things like that. I don't think that that's necessarily the biggest concern. My concern here with Kyle Whittingham is, first of all, he hasn't won a bowl game since 2017. He hasn't won a major bowl game since 2008, you know, and Whittingham's a phenomenal head coach. He won 177 games at Utah over 22 years. That's pretty impressive to do. And Utah was, you know, they had Urban Meyer there. But Whittingham made Utah an unbelievable program. You know, he had 7 or 8 winning or 10-win seasons there. You know, my concern is, when has Kyle Whittingham ever really gone above and beyond? You know what I'm saying? When has he ever exceeded expectations to the point where he could put Michigan in a position to win a national championship? Because at the end of the day, that's the goal if you're Michigan. It's not and that's how I feel with Notre Dame, bringing Marcus Freeman back. That's how I feel with Penn State and Matt Campbell, which, again, we're going to talk about in a moment. But it comes down to, can this guy win us a national championship? And I don't know if he can I don't know if you can with Kyle Whittingham. And of course, that remains to be seen. This is the first time he's coached, you know, east of Utah ever. You know, so that's going to be interesting to see. It's interesting to see some of the guys that he's brought in. Jason Beck, potentially the offensive coordinator. Jay Hill, potentially the defensive coordinator. Though that is official, but Jason Beck, I believe it's still kind of being decided. Whatever. So there are ways to go with this where I can see it working. There are ways where it goes where I don't see it working. I think with recruiting is one area that I am questioning. Because, this is going to kind of be the same way with Matt Campbell and Penn State. That's why I wanted to talk about these two coaches specifically, because I think a lot of these things go hand in hand. So when I say this stuff about Kyle Whittingham, and I come back to Matt Campbell in a moment, I am going to say it's kind of the same thing with Whittingham. And so this is very important for both head coaches. At Utah, you're not getting the cream of the crop recruits. Campbell wasn't doing that at Iowa State either. With Whittingham, you know, you're getting your guys in and you're developing them, and that's fine. At Michigan, recruiting is totally different. It is totally different than it is at Utah. It can be easier in some cases because you've got kids that from the time they're born or the time they can pick up a football, it's, I want to go play football at the University of Michigan. Right? That's just kind of how it is with some programs. Michigan falls in that category. But with Kyle Whittingham, you really at Utah, I mean, you're recruiting from places over an area in, you know, California, Oregon, Washington. You're recruiting over in that area, and then the guys you're getting from, you know, Idaho, they're not going to realistically play at Michigan. That kind of recruiting class isn't going to be accepted. Now, if you can take that talent and you can develop it and you can make it, you know, what it is, then fine. But that kind of thing doesn't fly at Michigan. Not only that, but they're recruiting 2 years in advance. Michigan's already building that 2027 class, probably already checking in on the 2028 class. In fact, certainly checking in on the 2028 class, you know? And I think with recruiting, they're going to be just fine. Yeah, I know Whittingham was met with all of the players, I would imagine, at this point. So I would venture to say that players have made up their mind whether they're going to be a part of this Michigan roster next season or not. And I would imagine that Whittingham knows more than the general public knows about those players that are coming or going. But, I thought with the recruiting class, I didn't think Michigan took too many losses. I really didn't. And so good on them for that. But this Whittingham hire is interesting to me, and I think it's a good hire. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a good hire. I'm going to be interested to kind of see how it goes if Bryce Underwood returns, which I don't really know if you're going to have to worry about that. I really don't think that Underwood's going to leave. And if he does, then I would imagine that LSU coughed up a bunch of money to get him back in Baton Rouge. That would be my guess. But I don't think you're going to have to worry about that. I think they're going to build around him this offseason. You're going to bring guys like Andrew Marsh and Jordan Marshall back who really, they came along. Like Andrew Marsh was a guy that I don't even think a lot of Michigan fans were really expecting him to have the kind of season that he did have. So I think that Michigan is going to be all right. I'm going to rate this hire a B+. I'm going to rate this a B+ hire because I think that Whittingham is a good coach. I just don't see him hitting that ceiling in this 5 years. I just think this is a hire to continue sustainability. So then the next hire that's made, whoever that may be, is not coming into a terrible situation. With Penn State, we want this guy here for the next decade plus with Matt Campbell. And with Matt Campbell, this is one of those hires where you fire James Franklin. He was one of the first major head coaches, if not the first. I don't really know timeline-wise, but when you're looking at this, Matt Campbell fell into Penn State's hands. Every single hire they were going to make, Matt Rule got re-signed. Every single hire it felt like didn't go their way. Kalani Sitake got re-signed. And so nothing's going Penn State's way, and here comes Matt Campbell, who knows how to build a program. If I want to even mention Kyle Whittingham building Utah into a prominent program, then I have to sit here and say that Matt Campbell is Iowa State football. 100% through and through. He is the greatest coach in Iowa State history. He is solely responsible for what's there. And now you're getting this guy at Penn State. You are getting a winner. You're getting a leader. You're getting a guy that was in NFL conversations multiple times. I remember wanting the New York Jets to hire him back when they hired Robert Saleh. I really wanted Matt Campbell. So this is a guy that I'm really intrigued to see what he's going to do at Penn State. And I think this is a great hire. I think this is a really high ceiling hire. I think this is different than James Franklin. I really do. I think that the floor for this hire is a James Franklin. And you look at the schedule next season for Penn State. Come on. You're looking at 10 free wins right there. You could get to 11 wins in your first season and people are ready to build a statue for you. That's the thing here with Campbell is, and this is how I kind of feel with Michigan and hiring Kyle Whittingham as well. Once you give fans a taste of a national championship, whether they win one like Michigan did in 2023, or you're Penn State, and a lot of people are saying, okay, Penn State can win the national championship this season. And you get those fans feeling as if they can win a national championship. That's it. That's all they want now at this point. Let's go win the Big Ten. Sure, let's go do that. But we want a national championship here. So the expectation has now been set by previous staffs, or by the previous staff for Matt Campbell. And that's go win a national championship. I think Matt Campbell can do it. I do believe that is of all of the head coaches that have been hired, there's only a couple that I'm really looking at and saying, okay, this guy can go win a national championship. I think Matt Campbell can. I go back to the recruiting, though. When you're at Iowa State, you are kind of you're kind of the runt of the pack when it comes to recruiting. You're not getting the guys Iowa's getting. You're not getting the guys Nebraska's getting. You're not getting the guy, in your area in general. So you're getting, and I still think that speaks a lot about Matt Campbell. And you look at the guys in the portal for Iowa State right now, I believe they only have 16 players on their roster right now because a lot of those guys are probably going to go to Penn State. And we can talk about that further into the offseason. But when you can sit there and have your roster pretty much built out and you can get all these guys to come with you, plus you're wanting to retain some of the talent that's already at Penn State, this team could be really competitive next season. And I don't want to get too much into it here on December 30th of 2025. I don't want to write checks that Matt Campbell can't cash, but this is a team that I think could be pretty competitive next season in the Big Ten. With that schedule, with the players that they're bringing in, the experience they're bringing in, you get a guy like Rocco Becht in there, which I'm not the biggest Rocco Becht guy. However, it's not like you're bringing in a new quarterback that doesn't know the system, that doesn't know what's going on. And I think that matters. I really, really do. Just kind of going down the line here, Dylan Lee has entered the portal. Chase Sowell's entered the portal. Carson Brown's in the portal. Samuel Sames in the portal. This is all Iowa State guys, Marcus Neal, that are going to go. And if they go to Penn State, Ben Brahmer, these are all guys that had phenomenal years. You can go to the On3's website and you can just scroll through all of these guys that are in the portal right now for Iowa State. And so I'm excited. I am excited for Penn State next season. I was pretty excited for them this season to see what they kind of had going. But yeah, I think those are the only hires that we're going to get into. I don't think, the James Franklin stuff at Virginia Tech, that's done and it's over with and it's tired. Let's get into these games this weekend. Let's not bury the lead of this week, right? Kyle Whittingham, cool story. We can revisit the Matt Campbell thing anytime we want. Marcus Freeman staying at Notre Dame. I think that was pretty known. Let's talk about these games. I am excited to talk about them. And first of all, I'll bring this up here, and I'm just looking at this on the ESPN app. Let's take a drink of water here real quick, but these tickets are unbelievably cheap. Unbelievably cheap. Get-in price for Miami, Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, AT&T Stadium, $28. $28. If you're in the Arlington area, if you're within a 3-mile radius of the Arlington area, this is a game you got to go to Wednesday night, New Year's Eve. Go have fun. Go have a good time. You can hang out in Arlington that night. Hotels might actually be a bit of a problem, but that's fine. Oregon, Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl in Miami. In my opinion, the best game of this entire round, $39 ticket right now. You can go get it. You can get into this game right now. It's going to be a beautiful matchup. Beautiful. Before we get to that game, let's talk about Miami and Ohio State. I feel as if this is one of those games where there's so much time in between games. And that gets people... I always live by this saying. Think long, think wrong. Right? There are too many people that are thinking way too long about this game. And I understand why. Because if I'm Ohio State, first of all, the first game that we would have watched to prepare for this game, it would not have been anything from this season. I would have looked at the Michigan game from last season, a game that they lost to an inferior Michigan team. I would have watched that game first to do the exact opposite of everything you did in that game. My problem with that game was Ohio State tried to prove something that they're not. Ohio State tried to prove that they're this physical, dominant team on the ground, and they're just not. They're just not. If you play like that in this game, if you try and show Miami, hey, we're tougher than you, I think that's where things get interesting. Because I think Miami might win that battle. I really do believe that Miami would win that battle up front with the defensive line and with the offensive line as well. They've got to get out of that. They cannot do that. That is bad. That is where bad things will happen to them. What they can do is they can utilize two of the best receivers in the entire sport, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, who are now fully healthy. And I don't believe that they were playing there at the end of the season fully healthy. Now they are. Utilize that. The issue here that I've got with Miami is I'm just not a Carson Beck guy. I'm just not. I think whenever, and this is how I think that Ohio State could dominate this game, because I think Ohio State's going to win. I don't really see a world where, I think this game has the best chance to be a blowout. I really do. Because I could see Ohio State, getting the ball first, going and scoring a touchdown, forcing a stop on the defensive side of the ball, go and kick a field goal, and you're up 10 points already. And now Carson Beck can't play like Carson Beck anymore. He has to go make plays. He has to throw the football down the field. He's got to make a read or two. Instead of getting the ball out quickly, there's going to have to be more than Carson Beck that makes plays in this game. That's how they're going to win. And I'm looking at guys like Malachi Toney. I'm looking at guys like Mark Fletcher, who played phenomenal in the Texas A&M game, might I add. I thought he was the best player on the offensive side of the football for Miami. You're going to need Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. Where are they? That's going to be the big one. I think this has the potential to be a very good game, and it's a standalone game on a Wednesday evening. For those of you that are going out and having drinks on New Year's Eve, this is a perfect little pregame. Have a glass or two while you're watching this game. You want to watch the rest of it at the bar, that's fine. But this is a game that I think people are going to be watching. This is going to be a fun game. I do think Ohio State wins. I do think Ohio State is going to win this game. That 9.5 spread is interesting. Because like I said, if Ohio State comes out and they start this game off red hot and they build a 10-point lead early on in this game in the first 10 minutes of the game, I don't know if Miami can get out of that hole. I really don't know if they can get out of that hole, and that's my concern. That's my concern is Miami digging a hole early that they just simply cannot get out of. Let's keep it going here. Another Big Ten team here. Oregon and Texas Tech. This game is an absolute travesty that it is at noon Central. It's an absolute tragedy. Or excuse me, noon Eastern. Sorry, I'm on Central Time here. So this game's at 11 o'clock for me. This is one of those games. ESPN FPI has Texas Tech as a favorite. Vegas has Oregon as a 2.5-point favorite. Listen. I'm not betting on this game, and I wouldn't recommend that you do it either. I wouldn't. If you want to bet on this game and you want to bet on Oregon to win, I would recommend, instead of putting $20-$30 on this game here, take 10 of that. Take 15 of that. Heck, take the 20 if you'd like. And I think you could sprinkle that on an Oregon National Championship. I firmly believe that. Plus 700 right now. Something about this team, man. Something about this Oregon team just really gets me. I'll tell you why. Texas Tech is a prime example of last season's bye teams. In the sense of, I think Texas Tech's a really good football team. This is probably maybe the best defense that Oregon's going to have seen all season long. Right? But they had that bye. They had a chance to sit. Oregon got to go play a little bit. They got to go throw the football around a little bit. Dante Moore continues to play phenomenal football, and everything's great. Everything's fine. One team's going, one team has it. You cannot underestimate just playing these games. You can't. It's important. The thing with Oregon is you look at their previous matchups this season where they have played pretty good defenses. You look at the Penn State game, they scored 17 points in regulation. You look at the Indiana game, they scored 20 points. You look at the Iowa game, they scored 18 points. So if I'm Texas Tech, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, let's get to 24 points. Let's get to 21 to 24 points in that range. That keeps you in the game. That keeps you there late. That gives you a chance to go win it late. If you're at 21 points and you've got the football, you're probably down a field goal. It's probably 24-21 at that point. Maybe you're up with the football. A chance to go put the game away. That's what it's going to come down to. I think that what you're going to get out of Dante Moore in this Oregon offense, you're going to get 24, 27 points. I really don't see a world where they're going off. I don't. This is a phenomenal defense. And when I say 24 to 27 points, like that's the max. I cannot see them. If they get to 30, 34, 35 points, like that would be utterly impressive. And people that are betting that plus 700 for them to win the national championship are looking good. Because if they win this game, I'm going to make it very clear how I feel about rematches. If they go on and they play Indiana, I'm going to make it very clear that I do not like rematches. I do not like the way they make me feel. I do not like the way they make me feel. I think the team that wins the first matchup usually loses the second. Usually. Not always the case at all, but usually. And so with that, you go to the national championship game. If you win a rematch if they played Alabama, I would very much take them over Alabama. You're looking at a national championship game against Ohio State, who lost to Indiana, or Georgia, who beat the tar out of you a few years ago. You think Dan Lanning forgot about that one? I can't imagine he did. I am a big fan of both these teams. I think there's plenty of talent there. I think Texas Tech is way ahead of schedule. I don't think they expected to be... winning the Big 12, I had them ranked as my second team in the Big 12 as far as talent goes in the conference going into this season. I still don't know if much of the Texas Tech fan base would have said, yeah, we're going to win the Big 12 and we're going to be the 4 seed in the playoff this year. And if they said that, then good on them. The best is coming for Texas Tech. I just don't think it'll be on this night. I do not think this morning, actually, for some of us. I don't think so. I think Oregon's going to win this game. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think this 2.5 spread, I think that's a phenomenal line. I think that Oregon wins by a field goal. I think that Oregon will win by a field goal. This will be like a 2017 kind of game, and these Oregon fans are going to go home quite happy. So I think that if you're looking at this Oregon team and you're thinking of betting on this game, I would just sprinkle that on the national championship game, because I think that there are 4 to 5 teams that can win this national championship, and Oregon is certainly one of them. Moving forward, Indiana and Alabama. And I'll say this, it's funny enough to mention this. This is the one game that I'm looking at where I'm not even considering the other team. I'm not. And it's no disrespect to Alabama. It's not. I think it's a solid football team. They fall down 17-0 to Oklahoma. They come back and they find a way to win. I'm not sold on them, though. I'm not. The way that they closed out their season, I was kind of on the side of I don't know if Alabama did enough. I didn't. They close the year 2-2. They lose at home to Oklahoma in a game where they played absolutely they handed that game to Oklahoma. Georgia, they got their breaks beat in. 3 losses at that point. Shall we not forget the Florida State game? And we're looking for maybe some rain here in Pasadena. The Florida State game was raining and they lost by 2 touchdowns. This Indiana team is different. This Indiana team is the favorite, well, I guess the second favorite now to win the national championship for a reason. They're the Big Ten champs for a reason. They're the number 1 team in the country for a reason. They're the only undefeated team in college football for a reason. Because they are like that. Stephen Daly's going to be out for this game. He's out for the season. A lot of people are concerned about that, but I'm just simply not. And I'll tell you why. When Elijah Surratt goes down, did anyone think Charlie Becker was going to step up in this fashion? I can't imagine. Whenever Aiden Fisher was down, did anyone expect Isaiah Jones or Elijah Hardy to step up? I did. Because I went to the spring game this past year for Indiana. And I remember pointing out Isaiah Jones and Elijah Hardy as two guys. Let's pay attention to those guys this season. And they've come on nicely. I mean, Elijah Hardy leads this team in tackles and sacks. Elijah Hardy, a linebacker, leads this team in sacks. I think he's going to have a big game. Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman winner. Look, these titles are there for a reason. He's the Heisman winner for a reason. They're the Big Ten champs for a reason. Coach Cignetti is the coach of the year for a reason. And I think you're going to see it in this game. I really do. How does Alabama win this game? You're going to need Ty Simpson to play really, really well. Really well. I don't know if Alabama has played a defense like Indiana's. Oklahoma has a great defense. I'm not saying that Indiana's defense is better than Oklahoma's. Georgia has a great defense. I'm not saying that Indiana has a better defense than Georgia. The way that Indiana plays defense is so different from the way anyone else plays defense. That's why they beat Oregon. They dominated that game. Mendoza throws a pick six in that one. They dominated that game. They beat Ohio State for a reason because they physically outmanned Ohio State. They outmanned them. They out-physicaled them. And at the end of the day, you look at the points that were left on the board by Ohio State. Indiana left some points of their own, but you can say what you will. Indiana outplayed them as well. Outcoached them. I believe Curt Cignetti is the best head coach in college football. And if I'm saying that, I don't know if that's necessarily a hot take anymore, but I think it's by a very wide margin. I would have Marcus Freeman up there. I would have, I guess you throw Kirby Smart up there. Ryan Day, sure. Those are the four, in my opinion, that are in the conversation for being the best head coaches in college football. And Cignetti is like, I think it's Cignetti at one. I don't know if that's an argument. I don't think that's a conversation. Beyond that, you can argue about 2, 3, 4 if you want, but Cignetti is the guy here. And so for that, I will say that I think Indiana's going to dominate this football game. This is a 7-point spread. I think they're going to cover that with ease. I think that this is like a 31-14 final. I really do. I think when you're watching that Oklahoma and Alabama game and Oklahoma goes up 17-0, I think you're going to see a lot of that in this Indiana game. Let's close it out here. Let's close it out here with Ole Miss and Georgia. Look, I said that the Alabama-Indiana game is the one game where I'm not even considering the other side. And I do mean that. That is true. I'm not really considering an Ole Miss win here. I'm not. But I am taking it into account that Ole Miss, I guess there's a way. I'm taking them into account in the sense of I'm paying attention to what's happening. And Pete Golding, he coached a phenomenal game against Tulane, but let's face it. Ole Miss beat Tulane worse earlier on in the season. We didn't need that game again. I think anyone on Ole Miss's staff probably could have coached that game and won by 30. This is not a shot at Pete Golding. I think what he has done this season and kind of how he has built that, and he is now the head coach of a playoff team, and these are your first 2 games as a head coach ever, you cannot do anything else but respect that and appreciate that. But do I think that he's going to win this game? Do I think he's going to beat Kirby Smart in his second career game coaching? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Do I think that Trinidad Chambliss is going to outperform Gunnar Stockton? I think there's a chance, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Gunnar Stockton's a better quarterback than Trinidad Chambliss. Do I think Kawan Lacey with an injured shoulder is going to be able to outperform Nate Frazier? Kwan Lacey's a phenomenal running back, don't get me wrong, but I wonder how much we're going to see this injury come into play. I really do. And I think Nate Frazier's phenomenal. I think Nate Frazier's a really, really good running back. If you would have given Nate Frazier the extra 125 carries that Kwan Lacey had over him, 115, whatever it might be, yeah, I think Frazier probably would have ran for 1,300 yards as well. But it's different. I absolutely believe Georgia's going to win this game. I'm, in fact, surprised that this spread in this game is less than the one in the Alabama-Indiana game. I'm absolutely surprised by that. So maybe they know something that I do not, and I would be okay with being wrong on this, and okay with coming here on Friday for the episode and saying, yeah, I was wrong about this game. Ole Miss, I mean, what can you say about them now? I don't think they'd beat Ohio State, but we could cross that bridge when we get there when I sit here and say I don't see them beating Georgia. And if they do it, then more power to the Rebels. But I think this is a Georgia win. I do. And it's a cool story for Ole Miss. I'll be curious to see how they do next season. I'll be curious to see what Pete Golding does in his first offseason with the transfer portal literally opening up the very next day. It opens up on Friday. And that's crazy. I said we're going to talk about some transfers. What I meant by that, we talked about the Iowa State guys. We're going to get into it starting Friday. We're going to get into that starting on Friday because that's when the portal opens up, and I think that's when you're going to see a lot of things. I think you're going to see a lot of things coming out over the next few days. Just based on, okay, this guy's going to go here, this guy's going to go there, but if they can't make it a fit. I mean, this is free agency at this point. This is like free agency where guys can't technically sign, but you know where they're going to go. I think Georgia's going to beat Ole Miss. I think it's going to be in dominant fashion as well. The thing with these games, and I'll leave kind of with this, is I think that I'm very confident in all four of these picks. I'm very confident Ohio State's going to beat Miami. I'm very confident Oregon's going to beat Texas Tech. I'm very confident Indiana's going to beat Alabama. And I'm very confident Georgia's going to beat Ole Miss. But this isn't one of those games, one of those rounds where all of those things are set in stone to happen. Like the first round. I mean, you kind of knew that Ole Miss was going to be here. You pretty well knew that Oregon was going to be here. I think some people, there were toss-ups between Miami and Alabama and then Oklahoma and A&M. But I really could see, and how are the bye teams going to play after we saw them last season? A lot of things to be interested in here. This is going to be a good round of college football, I think. And cheap tickets. If you're in these areas, go to these games. Enjoy these games. Consume these games. Because it's going to be a lot of fun. I want to get back to you on Friday with a show. We're going to recap all of these games. Like I said, we're going to get into the transfer portal. And we're going to talk a good deal about that. I want to thank everyone for so much for tuning into this first episode. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. You can follow me on TikTok at jet.garrett. All of you that came over from there, I want to appreciate you and take the time to say thank you. Hit the subscribe button here. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter, both at jet.garrett. This is going to be a fun weekend. I can't wait to talk about it. Enjoy your new year. Have a safe and blessed new year. I think we're just going to leave it there for now. Thank you guys so much. God bless.